Welcome everybody. This is CBSI Presents Tales from FlipSide number 58. Today we are talking about collecting foreign editions. We have a special guest from Foreign Comic Collector magazine. I'm Gino, Forgotten 5 Comics. Everybody, if you need speculation advice, comicbookinvest.com. That's where it's at. Boys, introduce yourselves.
Hey, P-Dubs here. Sorry if you're colorblind, but I do have a marvelous shirt on today. Just got back from Hawaii. Please stay tuned for the end of the show. I'd like to talk about a unique opportunity with a company I just discovered called Amway.
This is Scotty Too Hottie, also from Forgotten 5 Comics. How about Bryce Harper to the Phillies, boys? How about that?
Hey, that's a lot of moolah you got
there. Been hamstrung for 15 years.
Don't worry. 13. It's only 13. Don't worry. I'll tell you what. We're still gonna be. Bobby Bonilla will still be getting paid after Bryce Harper's contract's over.
He will be.
What up, guys?
All the Washington fans were talking about how you can boo Bryce Harper like they did. So,
well, as long as they don't boo him like the Islanders fans did John Tavares. What up, guys? This is Brian McClay. Big rest in peace to the great Ted Lindsay. Passed away at 93. One of the few guys to carry the C over the great Gordie Howe. Quick fun fact for everybody out there: the very first guy to raise the Stanley Cup above his head. So big rest in peace to the great Ted Lindsay.
I got his autograph, man.
Luke Perry as well.
Yeah, Luke Perry too. Yeah, that's a shocker today, boys.
My wife's in mourning over that one.
Oh, I bet.
That was from the stroke I read. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yep. You want to go next, Z?
Oh, I'm up, huh? I hope Scotty went so fast I got confused at the Philly talk. This is John Z. I got nothing to talk about because they talked about all the news right now. I do want to introduce our special guest, Matthew Roybal from foreigncomic-collectors.com, Foreign Comic Collectors Magazine. He also has a Facebook group that he admins with some other guys. So welcome.
Thanks, guys. It's cool. You know, I listened to the podcast a few times. You guys have great energy, and I'm real excited. Really excited to talk about this. Just thanks for having me.
Glad to have you on.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks for being here, man. You're actually one of the few guys who said they were going to do it and actually came on. So that's a plus.
That's cool.
Now. We're cooking with fire.
Get these numbers up, the ratio up.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So, want to do some pickups quick and get those out of the way?
Yeah. Pickups. Everybody's favorite segment of pickups. Obviously, Stein's not here to murder us and pickups, but I guess I'll go first. I only have one book. I mean, it's not even that great. I mean, it's just.
It's a hack.
I mean, it's a hack. It's a hack book because that's all I collect anymore is hack books.
So I like that one.
Man.
Yeah,
what you like.
Yeah, it's Mars Attacks. I mean, it's his newest book that he came out with. Is it this one? One of them I'm gonna get. It's actually signed by him. I mean, he doesn't have the. I mean, it's not like a crazy signature, but I mean, you know, one of them I'm gonna get. It's gonna be signed. So,
is he doing any cons? Is he doing any cons you're going too soon?
It's always like it's by I don't know. It's kind of by Scotty. It's in like around Pennsylvania. He only does local cons, so you know, he doesn't do like any big cons. Like he's not at C2E2 or so.
Come out to Philly, we'll go.
I could do it. So that's all I got is one book. I'm a loser. So. Who wants to go next?
You got, Paul?
Me?
Yeah.
I got 3 books. I picked up Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #5, the cover A variant. It's kind of hard to come by. I just got an email alert that it was in stock, and so I got that for a good price. It was listed as a very fine minus, but I don't know. It looks. I love when they undergrade, over deliver. It's a website.
MCS.
It's a website. And,
website.
We all know what you're talking about. Come on, Paul. So email alert.
But so last week, Stein showed that he got that Batman Widening Gyre #6B, that 1 in 25. And so I kind of rode his coattails a little bit. And I looked up that series and I found this #2B is a 1 in 25 as well. I just thought the cover was cool.
Yeah, it's a cool cover.
And then I saw as well in stock was the 1 in 50 sketch variant.
Ooh.
So I picked up both of those.
Look at Paul going on sketch variants. 1 in
Yeah.
50.
Riding the coattails of my fellow members.
Not
podcast
too many
members.
covers with axes on them in the old Bat series.
Yeah, that really caught my eye, so I picked those up. That's all I got.
There's one in the 300s with like a shrunken head or a severed head and an axe, like a Halloween cover. That's pretty cool. I can't remember the number.
I'll have to Google it.
You know, I do when I present everybody and I take them off, it's right below the eject button where I kick everybody out. I'm waiting for one day to boot somebody.
All right, I got some stuff. I got some goodies.
Do it up.
All right. First things, die number 1.
Ooh.
Variant.
Oh,
Yeah.
Catching some fire. That's I believe it's on the hot top 10, ain't it?
Yeah, I bought it before it went crazy.
Sure you did. Sure you did. Pump and dump. Pump and dump.
Yeah, you know
Springman
what?
says you're lying.
Here's the only one. Yes. You know what? I actually read the damn thing, so screw you guys.
Are those all the same issue or the run?
It's all the same. There's only 3 issues out.
Yeah.
Because I literally read it the last week, and I was like, this is pretty cool.
You know what's funny? We did talk about this before it got hot, and Scotty was like, "Hey, we should bring this up," and then all of a sudden it blew up. So
I just tried to secure some copies. You know?
Yeah. Do it
Don't
up.
worry, I'll let you know when they're for sale. So
That book is hard to find anywhere decent price now. That is nuts.
There are no cheap ones. All right, this was probably a drunk purchase. I don't know.
Oh,
Makes it even better.
Yeah, it is
That's
a
nice.
Mondo exclusive He-Man 1/6 scale figure.
Huh.
So it's got
Nice.
some cool artwork on the back, and then show you guys the figure.
That skull pick on the left is badass too.
Yeah, I think that's Skeletor's head. Pretty sure it's Skeletor's head.
That is a cool one.
Yeah, it is cool. I don't remember how much I paid for it.
If you're gonna drunk buy that.
Yeah, I think it was like $70. I want to say.
Incoming with Sean trying to hit you up on Hangouts right now.
Hey, I mean, you know what? It's definitely for sale. I must have bought it to flip. So, and then the last is a Grail card for me.
Oh yeah, this is a bad boy.
Congratulations,
National
man.
Treasure rookie. Yeah, I caught a Thursday morning auction that was pretty cheap. So.
And for people out there who don't realize, that is a big boy card. When we talk about big boy books, that's a big boy card.
Yeah,
Who is
this
it?
is
That's Carson Wentz.
and it's a parallel, so it's 3 out of 25.
With a nice, beautiful patch.
Yeah, that patch is amazing. I didn't think I was gonna have a shot at one of these, but like I said, somebody put up a Thursday morning auction, and I took advantage.
Winner.
Yeah,
Well-
chicken dinner.
So now I got to sell some books. So
You got
Keep an eye
enough
out
of
for
those
die number
guys to
one.
make.
Check out F5 for some sales.
Hey, speaking of that, I'll fucking shamelessly pump what we're doing. We got auctions going on, boys. So
yeah, we just did 50 auctions last night.
50 auctions. Are they ending this Sunday, right?
Yeah, they're ending this Sunday coming up.
This Sunday coming up. Hit them up. Who else wants to? Brian, you want to go next?
Z, do you have anything?
Yeah, I got a couple. I'll go.
Yeah, I'll go after you.
Okay.
So I rarely have any luck bin diving anymore, but I was going to try and purchase another book and it fell through, which would have been awesome, but oh well. I stopped by Half Price Books on the way, managed to dig up first 2 Vampronicas for very cheap, so I was happy to score that.
Ooh, obscure stuff. I like it.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's almost less obscure than anything else I post. One of the local shops was having a customer appreciation sale, had half off. I bought a couple back issues. Lois Lane sharp cover. Very sharp copy, maybe like a 9 range. So I had to pick it up for $5. Also got from that sale Superman.
You love that cover.
Oh, I love. Well, this is not the one I picked any 9/8 of though. I
But
want.
You don't have that?
Probably the most iconic Neil Adams Superman.
Yeah,
Right?
Probably.
That's number 2. This is number 1. This is Superman 233 for those of you listening. The breaking the chains in front of the kind of explosion. I have been watching 9.4s and 9.6s, and they have just went nuclear. So I don't know that I can score one. So I will stick with my 419. One more shark cover for you. Magnus Robot Fighter 4. I just happened to score an auction cheap. This is one of those weird books that auctions cheap, but you can't get a bin anywhere. So one of my favorite characters, one of my favorite covers. Went for it. This is just purely a PC book, but 4-color 631 for
Sorry,
This is truly in the weird zone.
Double cover.
That's a Z book right there.
That's awesome.
Not a double cover, nothing special, but that book in any kind of high grade is really, really rare. Like the Mile High, I think, is only a 9.4, and there's maybe 4 or 5 on the census above this one. Grew up with Davy Crockett as a kid. My dad loved it. My kids got hooked on it for a little bit, so it's just a personal collection book.
Yeah, see, that's what makes a book special,
cool.
man. I respect that.
Truthfully, if the Mile High copy came up, I would probably buy it. And the last time it sold is about $1,200. I would probably do it just to say I had it. And one last one. This one came in today, and I held off a shipment to Sean, who's probably pissed off at me because I've tried to send him stuff for like weeks. But I won this at an auction, and I thought I got to put this in the pile.
Nice.
Kick back to 2005 for me. Brave and the Bold 54. Probably one of the sharpest front covers I have ever owned.
Dude, I watched that book too. It looks clean, dude.
The only defect on it is there's a little like rust spot from another book that must have had rust. Like there's just a little staple line on the back cover. It's not from this book, it's from another one.
I wonder if they can take that off.
I don't know. I'll send it to
You might
Sean.
be able to.
Worst case, even if it takes that, that's going to be a point. I still think this is a solid 7, maybe a little higher. It is the prettiest cover. Like front cover colors are great. Beautiful copy of that book. So went really cheap and I bought it. That is it.
So my pickups kind of span the whole group here, and I'm going to kind of shamelessly plug my do my shameless plug. To start it off, I think I picked up something a little bit crazier than a comic. I might have picked up a ghost following me home. If you guys haven't seen it yet, I'm going to do a quick screen share. I do have another podcast called The Bogcast that I do here in the Valley, Phoenix. And we had a guy on that started talking about going to like graveyards and, getting EVPs and all this crazy shit. And let me go ahead and just screen share this real quick because this is actually kind of crazy. If you guys pay attention to, if you guys haven't noticed, I always got a squirt on this podcast. I'm always chugging the squirts. And while talking about the ghost in this episode, while him talking about the ghost, I think the ghost kind of jumped through him and just followed me home because I was drinking the squirt. Just keep your eye on the squirt. Let me go ahead and show you this.
We got a lot of responses. We went to Jerome. There was one part we were in an old school that was shut down. We were upstairs and we were talking about a dance instructor, and I was just fucking around, and I was like, "Hey, you guys like my dancing?" And nobody was getting anything. And my shit kicks on, and it goes, "No." And everyone started laughing. I was like, "You're a fucking asshole," because
Wow,
crazy. Something laughing. I was like, "You're a fucking asshole," because you gotta talk shit. Started laughing. I was like, "You're a fucking asshole," because you gotta talk shit.
That was crazy. Something just like pushed my hand. Did you guys see that? Mark, check out that what happened to my hand. That was crazy. Just remember that.
That was weird.
So that is one of my biggest pickups in history. I don't think it gets much crazier than that. But let me go ahead and jump out of this screen share here.
Dang. That's crazy, man.
Yeah, right? So
I was like, oh, what's going on here?
Right. So again, shameless plug. I love this new podcast thing, and big shout out to the guys on the show for letting me join this and me getting hooked on it. So let me get back to the comics.
But Brian's gonna be the next Joe Rogan out here,
right?
So
I'm a big fan of the McFarlane's Spider-Man #1 homage covers. I think I've talked about them before. There's a couple that are really, really tough to find that bring big money. And I missed out on a really good one a couple months back, which was the Spider-Geddon #1, the tan variant. So I picked up. I can't figure out why it's a 9.2, but I picked it up for $40. So I finally have the tan variant to add to the rest of them. I think that's an absolutely gorgeous cover. I think he did a really good job. I know there was another version that I still got to get, but for $40 for a 9.2 that I can't find any issues with.
Is that the video game?
Yeah. Yep. That's I think he did that through KRS Comics, and I think that it was when they were doing it, comicbookinvest.com was doing some type of thing where they were, talking about it. So it got a lot of eyes on it. So I didn't get them in time. It sold out really quick. But I've been going to this flea market and checking out books lately. And I went in there and I picked up, I don't know if you guys ever saw these. They were Marvel Universe figures that were kind of like the 3 3/4 inch figures that they did that were like miniature legends. And some of these figures are absolutely amazing. I think that they should have been way bigger than they ever were. They sell good. Some of these figures sell really good, especially the variants. Yeah, but all the Hulk figures I always grab. And I was lucky to pick this up for a couple bucks. It was still unopened, and it's just a cool looking figure. These smaller figures are really cool, and I think they can display much better than the legends, especially loose. So yeah. I picked that up, and then to segue into the foreign variants, and we'll get some talk about if any of these are worth anything. I showed you guys last show that I got this one, the Mr. Miracle.
Oh shit!
Yeah, so I picked that one up.
That is a rare one. I don't see it very often. It was done twice, believe it or not. I believe so. The Mexican books on the lift it up a little higher so I could see. Okay, that looks like it's a standard. Okay, cool. So that was like the standard Navarro size, but then they had a size that was called the Aguila, which I think is like an eagle. And I think some of those DC keys got reprinted twice. New Gods got printed twice. I believe Mr. Miracle got done twice. And so, of course, people tend to prefer the first one. And I believe that's the first Mr. Miracle Mexican. And it ran in Marvilla, which is Wonder Woman. So that was in the Wonder Woman run.
And it's funny you talk about the New Gods, because the other book that I shared last week was that book. So,
yep. I'll be damned. That's a good one, and that's another one that doesn't show up very often. For whatever reason, we're not quite so sure. Now, when I say we, I mean, some of the hardcore guys have been doing this for years, particularly as they're related to the magazine. A lot of the DC keys, we just don't see them as much. Now, there's been speculation that it was because down in Mexico in the 60s and 70s that Marvel was the hot thing. They were all Marvel zombies. Or we're just not quite sure if maybe print runs on the Navarro stuff was lower. But honestly, my opinion is I just don't think DC was as popular. Yeah. So they might not have been saved as much. But I can tell you right now, New Gods, Mr. Miracle, what was the other one?
Well, here's the crazy thing. So I picked those up because Z was talking about the foreigns, and I figured why not grab them just in case. And then
those are great pickups.
And when we started talking about it a little more, I figured I thought I saw some more, so I went back and grabbed the rest. And I'll just go through these really quick. This one of the horror books. Mm-hmm. One of the weird
Historias Fantásticas did a lot of the different horror titles.
And so
and sci-fi too, I think. Maybe some.
Yeah, so I'm in Phoenix, so obviously a lot of the Mexico books are something we see a lot. Here's one of the Marvel ones.
La Prensa.
Yep, one of the Daredevil books.
And it looks really nice.
Yeah, and they are. The color is really nice. I mean, they got a little bit of damage, obviously. Some of them have a little bit of water damage.
The joys of the desert.
Exactly, right? I don't even know what this one is. That's kind of weird.
Thomas Planeteros.
Yeah.
I think that's a DC sci-fi, I wouldn't know right off the top of my head.
And I love anything with the little aliens and UFOs.
Yeah.
I scored that. This is one of the Spider-Man books. It's not, unfortunately, not one of the, the Gwen Stacy ones, but probably one of the more common
That's
ones.
nice.
And then this is kind of cool because it's the Batman, but I think they kind of do two covers here, two different covers to kind of merge them.
Oh, no. I thought you had the one. I was going to be pissed.
So I was,
that's cool. This
whole foreign collecting thing, it's kind of gone crazy. And, when we were first talking about it and Z was first bringing it up, I don't know if you remember this, Z, but I was one of the, when you first were talking about it, I said, man, I really think you struck gold. And I really am happy that it's kind of hitting at the same time you really talked about it. I'm not going to say you started it, even though I think you probably started it, but
I didn't start it. I've just been talking about it amongst many.
Well, I know a bunch. I'm talking about our group. You know what I mean? Like this CBSI and the collecting groups. I know I never would have looked into any of the foreign stuff if you hadn't brought them up to begin with, and that's what I mean by starting it with this. Us talking about it. So,
I talk about a lot of crazy stuff and nobody listens. So
right, right.
Well, it all has to start somewhere.
So, I'll end my pickups real quick because I want to let you start talking because this shit is so damn interesting. It's unreal. So
nice. Well, I can tell you right now that I can think of 3 or 4 or 5 guys that have been looking for the New Gods one, the first one, not the second. And that Mr. Miracle, that I mean, I'll tell you right now, I don't think any of the hardcore guys have that one. I think maybe the second printing up. I think it was printed 2 times. But yeah, that's a great pickup and it's in good condition. And what we see sometimes is we'll see foreign books find their way to America, get shoved in like a closet or in someone's collection somewhere, and then they just pop out. And we kind of like to call them expats or escapees because sometimes in a lot of these countries, those books escape their original environment. Where because of environmental conditions, the culture is a big destroyer of books. You remember that the bag and board culture didn't really hit a lot of these foreign countries until like I'd say the mid '80s. In America by the '60s and especially the '70s, people were putting books in bags and trying to protect them and stuff. But the culture of like keeping the books like pristine, that whole kind of anality about it just having to be perfect, that wasn't something that you saw in a lot of these foreign collecting cultures till way later. So a lot of those older books, I mean, that book that you had right there, that Marvilla, I would say that's high grade, if not ultra high grade. Well, and it probably might grade out. It might grade at like 7.5. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's something that I was wondering is what is, I mean, do you see 9.6s, 9.4s, 9.8s in these books?
Extremely rare. And I'll talk about, there's some pedigrees or some foreign pedigrees, particularly in Mexico.
The newer stuff's tough, let alone the
even 60s. The newer stuff can be tough, because again, in the 80s, and I'll go over that when I go over to the Italian 300. It just the bag and board culture wasn't quite there yet. Some of the top collectors might have been doing it, but it wasn't like it was here in the States, where every guy that got into comic book collecting, he got into it and boom, he got bags and boards. It just wasn't that way. And so those ultra high grades that we're used to as Americans, 9.6s, 9.8s, you just don't see those, especially when you get older than like the 80s. You just don't see them. Ultra high grade would be like 7.5, 8 in a lot of these countries.
Is that because they just don't view the market the same? They don't view it as a collectible the same? It's kind of a toss aside?
Not necessarily. They just don't have that anality. Depending on country, the Germans in Europe did. The Germans had, and see, I'll give you an example. The Dutch, their grading scale is 4. There's 4 parts to their grading scale. Brand new off the stands, pretty good, red, and trashed. I don't remember what the Dutch language grading scale is, but it's only 4 steps. So compare that to Americans, 9.2, 9.4, 9.6, 7, 7.5.
Do they make it to the? Do they make it to the rack in okay shape, or off the rack? Are they already dinged up to heck?
That I don't know for sure.
And I'm sure. Well, that's kind of probably changed with the times.
And it depends on the country. So the Germans, their grading scale was a little better. I think it was like maybe 8 or 7 levels, right? The Italians was like, I think maybe 5.
Yeah, the Italians are about 5. I
think there's about 5. But think about that. In some countries, there was only like 4. So they were thinking like we did back in the early 60s with comic books, even in the late 70s and into the 80s. But before we go into more of that, I have some pickups actually myself.
Sweet.
Punny 3 Italian. I've always liked this.
I love that cover.
That's how small it is.
Yeah, it's very small. So compared to the Greek 129, which we'll get into in a little different. But yeah, it's smaller.
Where do you find the small bags and boards?
What's up?
Where are you getting the small bags and boards?
Oh, this came like that. So in the different countries of origin, depending on the size of the books, they'll have bags that'll fit. Now it's the bag and board culture is pretty prevalent.
Okay, so
but anyway,
you just get it with it.
Depending on country, you can buy them in the store. But this one, I'm not sure. I think it might actually be a bigger bag, and my Italian contact just bent it over. But yeah, so that's cool. It's decent condition. I upgraded my 122. This is the Corno 122 out of Italy. This is a nice one. The other one that I had some spine damage. Another interesting thing that if you don't know, so I'll give you an example. Here in America, when they returned them back to the distributors, they slashed the cover, right? Mm-hmm. In Italy, they took the books as a stack and they ran paint over the top. So what ended up happening is you'll see on Italian books, if you see paint, like how sometimes on American books you see that distributor ink. Mm-hmm. So people will assume, oh, well, they just got messy with the distributor ink. No, that means it was a return. So on the Italian market, if you have one with the ink pretty bad, I don't have an example here. Then you know that it was a return, and on the Italian market, it's considered less than, even though it wasn't ripped apart. So one of the complexities of foreigns is not only having to pay attention to what Americans are paying, but you got to figure out how those books interact and connect with us on their own back markets. And so each country has their own back market eccentricities. The Italian books, a lot of times, especially in the early Corno runs, they came with posters, they came with stickers, they came with all kinds of shit that if you were an American and you were on Italian eBay, you wouldn't know shit for Shiola why that book was so cheap. And you might not necessarily know that it was because it doesn't include the poster. It's missing the stickers.
And then how much of that stuff does CGC know if you sent it in?
They don't know shit.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I've seen Italian Cornos that should have posters and stickers that will grade out at a 9.2 or a 9.4, and the seller's like all excited, right? And then we've contacted him and say, hey, does it have the poster? And he goes, no, I didn't know it had a poster, or I didn't know it had a sticker. Well, as you get going in this, I hate to say niche, sorry, JF. As you get going into this world, you learn that in Italian, a sticker is called an adhesivi, ADHESVI. And if it says adhesivi on it, it has to have a sticker with it. Or you'll know that it has to have a poster with it. So yeah, CGC doesn't know that stuff. If you've got foreigns that you need to get graded, you got to go to CBCS. But anyway, so I build the 122 set. This is one of my favorite Spidey covers. I'm not exactly sure why. I guess it's It might be connected to Gwen Stacy's death. A lot of people like the 121 better because it's got all the faces. But for me, I like this book. I like the fact that the Goblin dies. It has meaning to me. So I build this one.
So so that returned version, is there a special market for that too?
Well, you're going to pay less.
You know, that's surprising. That's surprising because some of the, I know some of the, there's the bad word, the niche market. A lot of people like the date stamps on their covers. Yeah. People that like date stamps. So I would think that, you know, there's that same type of thing. If it's got the return thing on there, it'd be rarer to get back out into the market, right?
It might be, Brian, but the problem is that when they apply that ink, it's ugly.
Yes.
Ugly.
Yes.
Different than a date stamp. A date stamp can connect you to, like, you know, I know there's collectors out there that collect books that have the date stamps of their birthdays or whatever, the month of their birthdays. That is another niche. But the problem with the Italian books that got the distributor ink return on them, they're just ugly because I wish I had a sample to show you. I don't. I mean, if we get to talking later and I got time to search on the web real quick, I might be able to find one.
So before we went live, you were talking about how you kind of got started in all this, and one of the things I thought I heard you say is that this was this something that was kind of started on the CGC forums or
sort of, but
yeah,
but it's
just tell us how you got into this and this how.
Hold on, I'll get to that in just a second. First Cloak and Dagger Italian.
Wow, it's gorgeous.
See how pretty it is with just the black. This is a really nice copy. I built that set.
It's like the black background.
That's what I'm going to say. A lot of black backgrounds. I mean, it looks great.
Pops.
Well, and they don't have the clutter. You know, and a lot of the Italians, even the cornos, like this book that I showed earlier. If you actually take a corno and compare it with the Marvel 122. The corno is going to feel more significant in your hand. It had thicker cover stock. It just, you know, it's
higher grade, higher quality.
It's almost like something that, as a comic book collector, you don't want to like talk shit about Marvel, right? You don't want to talk shit. But the reality is, some foreign publishers handled these books better than Marvel did. Like the format, the corno used thicker cover stock. They're just. In some ways, a corno feels better in hand than a Marvel book.
I noticed on that.
However hereditary heretic that is.
I noticed on that Cloak and Dagger one, it said Star Comics. Is there a reason why that one was?
Yeah, that one's not corno. Star Comics is actually, some people call it Marvel Italia, but it's Edizione Star. So I'm not quite sure if they're connected with corno in any way. Like they're like as times go on, publishing houses change, right? I don't think so. I think they just ended up with the Marvel license, Edizione Star. And so a lot of the Copper Age Marvel stuff is done by Star. And they handled it beautifully, as you've seen John's 300 with the all black cover. They just packaged books in a wonderful way. Edizione Star is a great publisher. I mean, they're awesome. Along with corno and along with some of the other foreign publishers. And you know, when you get these books in hand, it's, you know, I can talk about it all day, but until you have one in your hand, it's a different thing. Now, the flip side of that is the Cabanas Hellas Greeks. This is another one I just got recently. This is the first Black Panther.
Don't talk shit about the Greeks.
That's right.
Well, the Cabanas Hellas were very thrown together very kind of haphazardly, cheap paper. The interiors are like, you know, they'll go like 2-color, then black and white, 2-color, then black and white. They're weird. Everything they could do to save paper and keep costs down, but there were reasons to that. But yeah, this one I got this.
This is a Black Panther 1 Greek edition. For those on the radio.
Yeah, we announce it because you can't see it if you're on iTunes.
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
I think the Greeks are some of the prettiest books, just because how they, I don't know, the Greek language is just unique.
Yeah, it's super cool. It's super cool.
Yeah.
That's why I was so excited to, you know, I'll talk about that Crow later. This is a great book. It has a tape pull up here, but you know, these books are so hard to find, I don't care. And that's kind of, as you get into this niche, as an American collector, we're so conditioned to care about you know, the quality of the grade and the condition. You know, in the early days, there were guys that were trying to use American standards to collect foreign books. Well, guess what? Their collections were about this big. because you can't have this idea that you're only going to keep 9.0s and try to hunt Greeks, because they're just not going to be in those conditions. So your question, Brian, was how I got into this?
Yeah, how did this all start?
Okay, so I'll try to break it down. So we believe that, and when I say we, I mean kind of the foreign comic collecting magazine crew. We believe people have been collecting foreign books forever. People always had. They'd go abroad, or they'd find them here in America. Foreign publishers would send back file copies, all sorts of stuff. But they were never necessarily something that people seeked out or definitely made a focus of, right? They were like little tiny things that were cool to have, that they could show their friends and whatnot. But maybe they would have large amounts of them, but they weren't highlighted within their collections. You did have guys. There were guys like I don't know if you guys have heard about that famous Dracula collector, but there's a Dracula collector from, I think, since the 70s. He had been collecting everything vampire, so every comic book he could find from around the world with a vampire or related to Nosferatu, he was after. So there were guys that were collecting, there's guys that were, Spider-Man. They had to have all the Spider-Man. Well, there was a guy, a legendary guy that collected Classics Illustrated. So, the Classic Illustrated in the American run had all those different editions, different types.
Yeah.
Well, then when you get into the foreign element of the Classic Illustrated, oh shit, it goes crazy.
Oh my God,
right?
Like Classic Illustrated 4-color are the runs you don't want to step into those.
You don't. But so that early guy, I don't know his name, but I've heard dealers talk about him. He made a point to find pen pals in all the foreign countries, right? And when he was finding those pen pals, he would then send money or checks and then have books sent back to him. So in the early days, pre-internet, you couldn't find these books unless you actually had family from there, or you were traveling a lot. So it wasn't necessarily even possible. But even with the advent of the internet, people were picking stuff up on eBay, American eBay. But no one, as far as we know that we have heard, some people did kind of get some stuff, but it was actually two collectors. And when I say, I'm going to say something called set building, right? So set building's where you seek out the same issue or cover, and that did change it. And there were two collectors at the CGC boards. One was named Hector Banda, and he was Chesperito. And there was another guy named Liam Sturgis, and he was Lighten 2000. And ironically,
Liam around.
What's up?
I've seen Liam around. He's still.
He's one of the godfathers. He was just a young kid. And Hector, see, this is what I find so fascinating about it. Hector was in the Mexican military, loved comic books, became an American citizen, joined the army, knew all about all the Mexican stuff, and started seeking out Spider-Man 300 and 252 from all places of the world. Now Hector and Liam, both foreign nationals in essence at first, and then Hector, of course, became an American. Those two guys were searching out foreigns, I think, as sets. I think as early as maybe 2005, 6, or 7, around there in the late, aughts.
Can you explain sets? Because to us, it's a run. You think of runs. What's a set?
A set is the same cover from a different country, whether it be key or not, right? So if, say, Spider-Man 129, you're looking for every 129 that you can find. Say Spider-Man 300, you're looking for every 300 you can find. Preferably has cover, but sometimes not, depending on how complete-ish a collector is. But Hector and Liam had been, found each other at the CGC boards and had been doing their thing for years, and kind of behind the scenes shared contacts and did all that stuff. And, people said, oh, well, that's cool. They'd have like the 227 thread, and, Hector and Liam would find or learn or research of a new 227 that had popped out that they knew of that was a foreign, and they'd show it, and people would go, oh, well, that's cool. Or Hector was really into getting signatures. So he had, the Mexican 227 signed by Neil Adams, probably the first one Neil Adams had ever seen. And so how it's kind of started was, well, I guess I was involved in that. I had been kind of going through I'd been kind of getting burned out on collecting. I'd been collecting for a while. I'd gotten into the Silver Age, and shit started getting really expensive. I started trying to do the whole slog of, you get like a 9.2 and then you flip it and try to get a 9.6. And after a while, I was like, all I'm doing is chasing grades. And I'm not getting the same enjoyment that I was getting out of things. And then one day on eBay, when I was looking at 252s, lo and behold, there's a little Greek 252 digest size comic. And I said, holy shit, that's cool. Bid on it, got it for $3. It had somehow ended up in a collection here in America. So I started researching that 252 Greek. Didn't find anything on it because at that time I was still relatively not experienced in my research and in order to research foreign comics, oftentimes you have to understand the language. You got to use Google Translate. So you learn to have two screens up and you start learning to use Google Translate. You start learning to take comics and actually do OCR. So, OCR is the text recognition. So if you have a foreign comic book that you need to learn about, but you don't know the language, you take that foreign comic book and you upload it to an online OCR. You let the text recognition figure out what it says. Then after it does that, then you can copy and paste right back into Google Translate. And from there, you start the slog.
I think how crazy it is that what the internet did. I feel like sometimes, we're going to eventually have to come up with some like, we have BCE for before Common Era, AD, whatever. They're going to have to come up with some type of term for pre-internet and post-internet, because the changes and the stuff that it did for everything. I mean, we're just talking about comic collecting here, and the internet and eBay and the forum groups had is absolutely mind-boggling.
Yep, you're right, Brian. And think about this too. Before pre-internet, a comic book printed in the Philippines might as well have been on fucking Mars.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't going to find its way back here. So what did that do to the licensing departments of Marvel and DC? They didn't give a shit. It's not like now. They didn't give a shit. All they cared about was that the checks cashed and they got the art to the foreign publishers. That stuff, those skeletons, the non-canon stuff that we'll get into in a second, that shit was never supposed to come back and haunt them. Wasn't until the web and people started finding that stuff and researching that stuff and getting it back here that it happened, right? So, so I'll try to make this quick. So long story short, I found Liam and Hector, found out that 252 was a book they'd been searching for forever, and was willing to pay. Hector was willing to pay, I don't remember, trade and money, a huge amount of money. And I was like, but I only paid $3 for it on eBay. Why does this collector want this book so bad? And then that's when I started becoming friends with them and figuring out the set stuff. And then went, holy shit, sets are cool. They're really fucking cool, and they're really hard to put together. Quite possibly one of the hardest things to do in comic book collecting, depending on set. And then through the CGC boards, I met Tim Bildhauser, the CBCS foreign comic expert. He had sort of found Liam and Hector at the same time that I did, and he, being a comic veteran who'd seen it all, was really into getting SIGs. He was getting the yellow labels. And then so when he found something that could be a unique yellow label, doesn't get more unique than a foreign book that a creator's never seen before. Or like Hector, who made Neil Adams sign El Hombre Murciélago, which is, Batman in Spanish, on a foreign 227. So Tim found his way into that little group that way. Then what started happening is you had a couple of collectors that started seeing what we were doing, and then I wrote the first article. The first article on this type of collecting, it wasn't the first in that, people had been writing about, Italian Superman, or, what was the big comic magazine, CPG or whatever. So they had articles about foreigners, but not the way that I wrote it. I wrote the first article where I talked about, the difficulties. I talked about what I call the foreign indigenous bias. What that is when a local indigenous country, right? The collectors there consider their output to be lesser than the American. Okay, that's what I call the foreign indigenous bias.
What do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that is, take I'll give you an example. As I was building the Spawn 1 set, I needed the Portuguese Spawn 1. I hit up my contact Nuno, and I said, "Hey, dude, I need the Portuguese Spawn 1." And he goes, "Oh, that's going to be tough to find, man. We can find the Brazilian, but that one's tough." And I asked him, I said, "Well, why?" He goes, "That one's tough because at the same time that one was on the stands, the American was on the stands. And the collectors didn't want their local version. They wanted the American version. Why?
Wow.
Because we are the badass pop culture fuckers, right? We export our pop culture all over the place. And yeah, so it makes sense the collectors would put the American output on a pedestal, right? So what did that do to the Portuguese Spawn 1? It made it so that at that time they probably sold less. They probably had smaller print run numbers, and you probably had collectors that bought both. Let's say they did, just to have both. They're completing it, but they didn't love the Portuguese one as much. Maybe that one they gave to their little brother, or they sold or something. So he had to struggle to find me the Portuguese one, and he finally did. And I was like, okay, cool, that's awesome. And so I started running across that. As we started going throughout the world, we start finding local indigenous biases against their local output. But the same could be true on the flip side. You can have some countries like South Africa where you've got this hardcore cabal of South African super comics collectors, and they would do things. I called Reader's Den in South Africa and said, "Hey, I'm looking for any super comics South Africans that you can find." "Oh, no, we don't have any of those. We don't find those at all anymore, and they're hard to find." Blah blah blah. Learned later from the guy didn't even want to talk to me. Learned later from one of the main collectors there. "Oh, Reader's Den, those guys know exactly what's going on." Yeah, and those, whenever they have super comics books come into their shop, they're on the phone talking to their local cabal of South African collectors, and the last thing they want is a fucking American sniffing around into their shit.
That's awesome.
So it's very unique, and I'll talk a little bit about how American money affects the back issue markets in the different countries and whatnot. But so basically, after I wrote that first article, we created the thread foreign comic collecting, or comic book collecting with a foreign variant bias. Now I know in the title of Tales from the Flipside we used variant. We've moved away from variant because it's too buzzwordy.
That's why we used it.
Well, that's true. That's true. But what we were catching all kinds of grief on the CGC boards by guys that were giving us a hard time by saying, "No, this is just crappy reprints. These aren't variants. They weren't printed at the same time. They're not like the UK Pence variants or the Canadian price variants. You're just saying that to make
bullshit Australian price variants."
Yeah. You're just saying that though the Australian price variant, New Mutants '98, is a fucking killer book. Way rarer than any American.
I still think it's bullshit, but beside the point.
But anyway, so we started catching a lot of grief, and so we had to start looking at the way we were classifying the books themselves. So we said, okay, well, yeah, I guess they got a point. They're not variants, but they're not reprints either. They can't be reprints. The art changes so much. There's the translation changes. There's so much elements. You can't just throw a reprint stigma on these books. And we were catching at the CGC boards, we felt, this whole stigma. "Oh, those are cool, but it's a reprint. Get out of here, kid." And so what we did was we just internalized and said, okay, we started running around that same argument all over the place and blah blah blah. So we just created, I don't know how many of you guys are on the boards at CGC, but there's behind the scenes PMing that you can have going, and you can have multiple people in it. So we had about 14 or 15 really hardcore guys, and we did thousands and thousands and thousands of posts, research. I mean, I'd be away, and there'd be like 300 posts in a day of the guys talking back and forth of shit that they had found or not found. And then we started thinking, all this stuff's really cool. We need to bring this stuff out of the darkness and kind of share it. And that's where the magazine impetus came from. And Tim Bildhauser was schooled by nuns, went to Catholic school, so he's a really good editor. So he used to tell me, "You're a horrible writer."
I'm breaking in here, but guys, this sounds nothing like Google Plus, Hangouts, and Koi.
Yeah,
not at all.
So
anyone who's ever written an article knows Koi will kill it in grammar.
Yeah. So the grammar, I'm horrible in grammar. So Tim came in and edited, and so we had all the guys kind of write articles and stuff, and that's how the magazine first got created. And we came up with the very first issue, which is Foreign Comic Collector magazine.
And what year did that come out?
2013.
So what's interesting is Indiana Comic Con is right there in the the scene of that, which was the first Comic Con here in Indianapolis. I went there and didn't know you from Adam, but I saw your freaking set of 129. I don't know if it was yours or Tim's, and it blew my mind.
Yeah, it was mine, I think.
Absolutely amazing.
And that first article, there it is right there.
And it's funny how this was going on at that time, way before a lot of these homage variant collectors were kind of started, right? I mean, there was people collecting homage variants. There's always been that, but not the amount that do it. And people were doing basically that with these sets, these foreign sets.
Yep. They were kind of using it as, and like I say a lot of times too, foreign books are like a mirror, right? They mirror our American pop culture right back at us. So they take, they can take Spider-Man 300 and whatever situations are going on in that foreign country, however that foreign publisher wants to package that book, they see it in a different way because they're foreigners. And so you can learn some stuff on a cultural perspective that you can't really learn just, necessarily, collecting American books. That's awesome. But there was some stuff that, that I've learned, and I'll go into that a little bit. If you guys want, I had actually planned sort of a little presentation with some really big books.
Yeah, and while you pull those out, I want to jump back. So I think it was before we were live. The magazine you just showed. Just for anybody who's not on YouTube right now, you said it was how many issues?
We made it 6 issues.
So 6 physical issues, and you just showed your collection that was in there of the Spider-Man covers, but or no, and sorry, we were live or not. It's all blended together with me. But the guts are not don't always match the cover. You said
they don't always match the cover,
yeah, which is interesting.
Which is interesting, and like that's another thing that makes foreign collecting difficult. Is it's not black and white. In American collecting, people have been writing about these books forever. They've been in Overstreet forever. Everyone knows, the grading scales. Everyone knows what's in a book. Anyone could go online and find the splash page to something. Sometimes we end up with foreign books that don't have the guts that match. And we got to figure out how to match that splash page when we're researching it with the book that it corresponds to.
Now, is there anyone in the foreign market who takes the foreign guts from another book and takes the cover from the other and makes their own hybrid so it does match?
Paul idea. Oh my god.
No, that's the most Paul idea I've ever heard all.
Well, you know what? You know what, Paul? Interestingly enough, Paul,
you would.
I don't know any Americans that do, but we do know that
Just
some
American
foreign
would.
collectors did.
See?
What's Paul in Spanish? That's who it is.
Pablo.
It's
But
Pablo.
And particularly in Greece, there was an infamous guy that took a whole bunch of those books. So in Greece, they didn't have the same kind of back issue market. It was, there was like collector clubs and used bookstores. They didn't have like comic book stores like we do here, especially in the 80s and stuff. I think maybe Athens had one, but most collectors, the way they got their back issues was through trading and word of mouth. But there was a famous example of a guy. He used to be a press operator, I believe, at Cabanas Hellas, where they were making the Greek marvels. And he took the 129 guts and a 129 book and matched them. And one of those books ended up with my buddy Tony Pomilla here in the States. So it actually is a rare book, and I don't think he did it to very many copies. And I'm not exactly sure when he did it. He was a press operator, so he might have done it at the time it was printed. I'm not sure. I'd have to contact my Greek friends. But so, Paul, that isn't a stupid question, actually. Foreign collectors did do that, and they often complained when the covers didn't match the American originals, or they were pissed off. So there's all kinds of weird shit that happened there too. Because
and the funny thing is,
you guys asked me about the crew and why does issue 1 the one cover and issue 2 on another, and they don't all match up.
They don't match up. So if when you dip your toes in this side of the pool, you got to kind of almost be a researcher. You got to find the stuff. Even me, I know a lot, but for a lot of these books, I knowing where the databases exist for them is almost just as important as knowing the knowledge myself. So like, the Mexican books have Baltic Comics and Spider-Mex. The Greek books have the Greek Forum, which has their own database. The Brazilian e-balls have, Guia de e-ball. So those are the places I go where I find that information. So if I'm looking for a book and I need to research it for whatever reason, by knowing the databases, I can then go in there and find it, which speaks also to what you were saying, I think, Brian, about the internet and how that power of information has helped us as just, collectors. No one could be doing this shit back in the 70s. It'd be impossible.
And it's amazing to hear stories about them doing that, where they're putting the covers with the books, because how would they know that, right? I mean, they didn't. Yep. They couldn't have. I mean, they could have known it back then. I guess if you're working at the press and you kind of knew what you were, quote unquote, reprinting. I don't.
Well, and they didn't have email like today's days. So I mean, postage would be terrible. Like if Marvel did contact one of these guys and said this is this, I mean, it would take months probably to get it there, or weeks.
Oh yeah, the time frame. But remember, a lot of these hardcore foreign collectors, they collected American books. You could get American books overseas, but you had to find them on American bases. Remember, the power of America. We have bases in almost every country. Well, guess what? On those bases, there are what do you call those? Where the PXs in those places?
Yeah.
Where American soldiers. That's why what are they? What do they call them? The
Mark
MJ
Jeweler
inserts. The Mark Jeweler inserts are so hot. Those were sold on foreign American bases on foreign soil. So the hardcore collectors could go back and get American books if they could, and make notes and compare. So they did. So a lot of them were aware of the American output at the time, but your average foreign collector at the time was just getting what they got off the stands. But yeah, so I hope that's somewhat interesting.
Well, one of the things that kind of blows me away is that some of these foreign books happened around the same time frame as the American books. Some didn't. Some there's a big gap. Can you explain some of that and how that works?
Well, some of the gap happened because Marvel had the artwork, right? And then so let's say La Prensa had the Mexican license. So they would send La Prensa the books or the art. La Prensa would duplicate it, but they might not have had a whole lot of the art. Marvel didn't get so in the early 70s, Marvel got a brand new camera for the strict purpose of duplicating art for the foreign market. So when you get pre-70, it gets harder and harder to find stuff that's close. But some stuff is. The Mexican stuff was pretty close. But by the 1970s, the licensing departments of Marvel, for sure, I know that because I've researched that, probably DC too, they were just pumping out art for the foreign markets. They didn't care if it was old. Interpressy. Yeah, Interpressy in the Nordic countries has said, "Hey, we want the DC license, and we want to print them in Belgium and Norway and Denmark or wherever they were going to print them." And they just said, "Okay, well, we can give you older issues or newer issues, depending on those deals that happened." They would get the artwork, and artwork could always be duplicated. In some instances, some of the art didn't make it with the color sets, so the foreign publisher had to put in their own color changes, and I'll show you some of that as well. But so that tends to happen. Now on the foreign back issue market for the hardcore foreign collectors, you want to see the books as close to the American date as possible. when they start getting further and further away, it better be a really cool edition, meaning it better have some pizzazz to it. If it doesn't, it starts to kind of drop on the value meter, right? But like the French Canadian stuff, I believe the after Spider-Man 129, the next foreign that was printed that's closest to the original print date was the French Canadian book, and so that book is really desired on the foreign back issue market. The Mexican book, the Mexican Mac, was sort of desired more on the back issue market because it was relatively close. It was in 74, I think, and I think 129. I think it was a couple months maybe, but I think the French Canadian 129 was like within a month or two. It was really close. So the closer it is to the original, the better. But so as it gets further away from the American original, it starts to, unless it's completely a badass edition because of some element, it starts to kind of drop off the awareness or the focus. But if you're a completist and you're building a set, you have to have every single one.
Yeah. That's the collector. The collector.
That's the collector.
Yeah, it kills us, right?
So exactly. So
Jesus.
Okay,
Christ,
so I'm going to bring this up because of John. Okay.
That was the book that hooked me. See, I think Inigo showed me a picture of that, and I said, I need it. And you were just a poor sucker that showed me a copy to buy.
I showed him the first slabbed non-canon ever slabbed.
I own it.
And John owns it because I sold it to him. This is we jokingly call this, the big booty Gwen variant.
Yeah,
Gwen had some big booty in a lot of the other issues, but for some reason this one, because it's so prominent, just stands out. So Dino, can you give me control for a second?
Yep. You're good to go.
You're going to want to share your screen.
Yep. Oh, yeah, got it. Share.
This is where we just buckle in and enjoy the fucking ride.
Yeah, now I'm just going to show you guys stuff. Okay, so the non-canons were done by Jose Luis Duran and a couple of other artists. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Now the story that was told by La Prensa, and the story that's told by the artist Jose Luis, and the story that is told by some of the other people that were around during that time was that La Prensa sent Jose Duran and a couple editors to Marvel in New York, right? And they sent them there to talk about doing their own Mexican Spidey versions. Now, there are two competing theories as to why that is. One theory is that the Mexicans loved Gwen Stacy, and who wouldn't? She's hot, she's blonde, and they did not like the fact that she was going to die in 121. That's one story. Okay. The second story is that by that time in the Mexican run, La Prensa was printing bi-monthly. So they had actually caught up to the American run and just so happened caught up to the point where Gwen Stacy was going to die.
That's amazing.
But by that time, they had gotten back and they had said they got permission. Now, their story is that when they went to Marvel in New York, they got full permission to create their own out-of-canon Spider-Man, right? And those out-of-canon Spideys were going to be drawn by them, and the stories were going to be written by them, and Marvel was going to be all on board, and their checks were going to cash, right? So they came back from New York, and they went to work creating these non-canon books. Now, at the beginning of that, I think there was, how many were there, John? There was 48, 49, I forget.
A non-canon, the number I've heard is between 45 and 46, because there's one that is a different cover.
Yeah, 46, I think. So at the beginning of the non-canons, they interspersed some of those with some American issues. Now I can't remember if some of those American issues went past the 121. So I can't remember if they specifically picked stories that would not make mention of Gwen Stacy in order to fuck up their canon.
Yeah, I
right?
can't tell you that, but they go in clusters. They go in like
Yeah.
there'll be 4 issues that are non-canon, and then there'll be 4 that are. It's
So
a chunk. Really
yeah,
weird.
and then but then it
or a list so I could figure it out.
It gets towards the end, it just becomes all non-canon. Now, it wasn't just Spider-Man. They were doing non-canon. What's the guy? The Marvel is it Sergeant Rock? What is it?
Sergeant Fury?
Sergeant Fury. Yeah, that's it. They were doing some Sergeant Furies. Say that again, John.
I showed one of those last month with the Sergeant Fury non-canon.
Oh yeah, yeah. They did some. Yeah, there was Sergeant Fury. There was there was some others.
A war one would do well in the foreign.
Yeah,
it seems like just an American, like a very American topic.
Yeah, but remember, everyone was sort of anti-Nazi, and so a lot of those non-canon Sergeant Furies had huge swastikas. And they did some crazy stuff. So anyway,
I mean, if you hit about 150 in that run, it's about 75% or more non-canon.
Yeah, they get to a point where they just stop using the American books. Okay, so this is the other part of that story. The other part of the story is, and while we do that, I'm going to show you some examples. So they told Jose Luis Duran to mimic Marvel style, right?
I've never connected those.
So what's the best way to mimic the Marvel style? The best way is to swipe them. Yeah, swipe them.
We're pulling this to relevant right now. We just Matina'd this bitch.
So
stop that, Paul, or stop that, Z. I don't want to hear that anymore. It's money to make.
So what does Matina mean? Is it a good thing?
It's an artist that's been accused of stealing work.
Oh, yeah.
You are so out of the American market. You don't even know one of the like top 5 artists right now.
I don't, because I don't collect modern American stuff at all. I'm completely out of it.
He's like a comic book hipster.
I see.
He is when you guys think I'm down the rabbit hole.
Well, this is pure down the rabbit hole.
Guys.
So since Z kind of put a stop to your presentation, I did want to ask another Paul question. Mm-hmm. When you were showing your first couple pictures,
that is cool. I didn't connect those.
Of the has there ever been pull that up. So have there ever been the scenes have been used, but they changed the words to fit where they were going with the foreign variant, or am I too crazy?
That happens. That would happen a lot, particularly when a foreign publisher didn't like what's being said. They would change the wording, or they would even do a direct translation in comparison to a cultural translation. I wasn't planning on talking about that book today, but there's a special dildo version in Greece. It's called the special sex toy Spidey, and it's because
the shocker.
The shocker. It's because my buddy who was working in Greece at the time. Well, I became friends with him much later, but he told me this story. So he was a translator, and he direct translated the shocker, which basically means dildo in Greece. And his editor called him into the office and said, "What the fuck are you doing? Spider-Man can't fight the dildo." And he said, "I thought it would be." And he said, "I thought it would be funny."
That's
and
funny.
The editor said,
"Imagine that character."
The editor said, "Hell yeah, it's funny. Go to press." And so in Greece to this day, the special dildo issue is kind of, collectors enjoy it. I have one. I can show you guys that at some point.
Crazy Americans.
So
who would know Paul is the Goodwill Hunting of foreign comics? Like
the art stealing, because there's one book, and I am not educated enough to know, but it's got the Batman Grim Reaper fighting Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's Aranita. Yeah, that's one case, another Mexican case where but in the book itself, I do not think they called him the Reaper. I think he had another name, but the art was stolen. You know, it was taken. It was cover swipe.
I can't think of the original issue, but I mean, it's a famous Batman cover.
Yeah, that's a famous Neil Adams cover.
Yeah, it's the first appearance of the Reaper too.
Yeah.
But like
issues he's got on, by the way.
Anybody that's not looking at this on YouTube is losing out.
This is a YouTube episode. Yeah, I'll put that in the description. Definitely YouTube episode.
Yeah, definitely, because I have shit to show for sure. So they came back, they did their stuff. Then La Prensa lost the license, and the license went to Mac. But those. And this is the rub though. When these non-canons got hot on Twitter, everyone was saying, "Oh, it'd be so neat if Marvel translated and repackaged these. It would be so interesting, and we want to see Gwen Stacy get married to Peter." Which actually, that was a dream sequence. He didn't actually marry her. But according to Mexican collectors that we know, the stories aren't very good, and no one would be all that thrilled to buy them.
No, to me, it's the covers. It has always been that these covers are Spider-Man with a good girl twist and a little bit of sci-fi.
Yep. I mean, and like I tell people all the time, so this is that book, The Big Booty Gwen, right? By this time...
a little bit of Kardashian, apparently.
What's up?
A little bit of Kardashian in it.
Yeah, it's definitely some Kardashian. So by this time in America, Gwen was dead. In Mexico, Peter is staring lovingly into her eyes on that banging body.
It's so crazy how much different that is. I mean, there was one of these that you showed where she's kind of in the background and you could see the difference even when she's kind of like in the background far away. You can see she has the bigger thought. I mean, look at that. That's unfreaking believable.
And they show a lot of ass shots. This one scene is
Yeah, these are yummy. Hold on, I'm trying to zoom, but for some reason I can't seem to zoom into it. Let me look at the other one.
Is this a conglomerate, or is this
this is a bunch of them that was put together by a Mexican collector to show the difference in the asses. This is a good one. Look at that. Yummy.
That's unbelievable. That is so crazy.
Yeah, Gwen.
Gwen's banging.
Mel V would be so happy right now.
Yeah. Why did we not invite him? He would just be in it.
I'm gonna text him.
So Jose Luis Duran had been asked before, why did you make Gwen so
curvaceous?
And he said, well, the Americans like their girls skinny, and here in Mexico we like a little meat on them. And he sure as hell did that.
So real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about this artist. Is this artist still around?
He is still around. Unfortunately, unlike if you want to talk about comic book artists that are kind of treated badly after the fact and have been suffer, it was even worse in Mexico. And so
you hear about a lot of American artists that can't pay their bills.
Yeah.
The whole
so imagine
thing and
at one time Jose Luis Duran was an install guy at ADT Security.
Wow.
Has he gained any little bit more notoriety? I mean, is he doing?
He has. Now he has. Unfortunately, he's losing his eyesight, so he can't make a whole lot of money doing like cover recreations and stuff. But he has a few that are quite awesome.
I mean, does he go?
He goes. Yes. Yeah, he goes to Mexican conventions. In fact, what is this? Oh yeah, this is the splash.
Hey Matt, can you shine a little light on my book that some guys made fun of because it was signed?
Oh, okay. So yeah,
this is great.
So John's book is actually signed by Jose Luis Duran, and I don't know for sure, but
it's the 128 marriage issue, by the way.
And it is the marriage issue, and that's the key of the run. There's a couple other keys, and I'll
Big Booty Gwen is a key.
Big Booty Gwen is a key. I'll show two others here in a second.
One.
But John's says por mi hijo, for my son. I believe that John's wedding book was actually owned by Jose Luis Duran and given as a gift to one of his sons, and then somehow got sold out from underneath him and landed in John's collection here in America.
Wow. That's fucking cool.
Okay, so this is the other part of the story here, guys. The other part of the story here is that when people asked Shooter and Roy Thomas, "That's so neat, you guys gave him permission." No, we didn't. We didn't give permission. And I've researched this.
I don't remember shit. He was fucking on power trip.
Oh, I'm sure, but you know what I think happened? So when Shooter and Roy Thomas are shown these issues, they are revolted. They go, "Oh, we would have never allowed that kind of stuff to happen. We would have never allowed non-canon Spidey to be just getting created outside of the thing." So what I think is it's a little bit of a mixture of the truth. I think that LaPrenza, the editor and the artist and all the guys that went down there to New York, they did get permission, but not from editorial Marvel. They got permission from the licensing department, who doesn't give a shit, and all they really care about is that the checks cash, because these books were never supposed to make their way back to America. And they were never supposed to come back.
And Marvel at that time was trying to get any money it could just to keep the doors
stay afloat. Yep, yeah. This was in the early 70s. So you want to license our shit? We'll license to the highest bidder, to whoever we want. And then once you have the artwork, or you create the artwork, who cares? So those are elements, those are licensing elements that are skeletons in Marvel's closet that now beautifully have come back to haunt them. And, why not? But the thing about that is, and let's see, I want to go back to where I can, let's see here. Sorry, guys, I'm not really, this is the first time I've ever.
Oh, this is good. You're good, man. You're more than good.
Google hung out. So I'm going to, you are in this video call. I click that.
Yep. And then you, once it loads, on the left, you just hit stop screen share. Or
okay.
There's that little box at the bottom to
I have to agree. Okay, I did that.
Oh no, you got to hit the go back to Chrome. That's what's happening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So in Chrome.
Yeah, don't join that.
Is it over here on this side?
Nope. Actual on Chrome.
In Chrome itself.
In Chrome. Yeah, there you go. The little left there where it's like a million things.
Got it. Okay, sorry about that.
No, you're good. There you go.
Okay, so while we're on the subject of that, and I wanted to. So this book, Hombre Rana 180, okay, big booty variant. It was published by LaPrenza, September 1973. It's non-canon, and of course, it was drawn by the famous, who they call in Mexico the Maestro, Jose Luis Gonzalez Duran. Another interesting key. A lot of people never think about this, but the first time blood ever showed up on a cover with Spidey,
I do not have this one.
Happened in the non-canon world. See the blood down there? See the nice, cute Gwen booty? So this is another non-canon. I researched this myself, and in the 70s, the Comics Code Authority did not allow graphic representations of blood. Mexico didn't have to worry about that. And this was 1973. So a guy in a pool of blood in 1973 would have never showed up on an American comic book. But in the Mexican non-canon, it can. So that makes this book a key, too, because it is, I believe, I could be wrong, the first time blood is ever shown on a cover with Spidey.
This issue in a quote rated very good, a 3-ish range, 3 to 4, just sold for $450.
Oof.
After after all the attention has been brought over in Twitter and stuff, people in Washington just sold for $450 and nowhere near as nice as his.
I'm never going to get these books.
And you know what's crazy is, back when I first started, you could get these books for $20, $19, $15. No one knew what.
I would say even 6 weeks ago, I was paying $40 and feeling okay.
Yep. Now, this next one of this book, of the non-canons that I'm going to share, is special. It's special for a reason. Now, this is the Satanica. It's a Vampirella cover swipe, I believe. I think it's one of the interior Vampirella cover swipes from an interior panel. It's got a really cool robot. It's got some weird acolyte or whatever. It's got, of course, a beautiful bodacious chick, and then I love the Satanica in her hair. Now that would, of course, never flown in America. Anything that had Satan in it would have been uncouth, or it wouldn't have flown.
What issue
Probably.
is that?
137.
137.
Which is
one of the early. It is.
Most of those float at the end.
But look how beautiful this is, and there's a reason why.
Is that like that's a Steranko thing, right? That whole writing in the Satanica, like that.
In the hair?
Yeah.
I think so. But I think this is from a Vampirella interior swipe. I could be wrong. I know that there
wrote Scorpion in something like that on one of his covers, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Steranko really liked to do that.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cool way of getting the name across. But the reason this book is so special, I've been offered $450, $500 for it, is because it's part of the Palacio pedigree. The Palacio pedigree is a pedigree out of Mexico City that is the most expansive, some of the most well-conditioned Mexican books we've ever seen. This could be the best conditioned example of this book on the planet because it comes from the Palacio. And the Palacio had both Navarro, La Prensa, it had Marvel DC, it had all the rare DC stuff that you never see. I could talk about the Palacio pedigree for 30 minutes, but I don't want to go into great detail on it.
I have the highest rated of a Spider-Man anything. $400 is nothing.
I know. Well, but this was a while back. I mean, I did not bite. I didn't sell it because it not only is this special because it's Palacio pedigree, but it was also owned by Tim Bildhauser when he was pulling Palacio books out of Mexico City. So, when those pedigree books were coming out of Mexico City, there was a few of us that were like ravenous piranhas, right? And we were picking these books up for cheap. I think he paid $19 for this.
Oh Jesus, that's a steal.
So that's the non-canons in a nutshell.
And if you get the end of the non-canon run, those last 5 issues, especially the last 3, they're not findable.
And one of the reasons was because, at least this is what I've been told, the last, was it 180 to 185, were not distributed. I think my last
one's 181, and I haven't seen anything past that.
They weren't distributed elsewhere besides Mexico. So remember that the La Prensas were being distributed all over Spanish-speaking South America, Central America, and Mexico. So for some reason at the end, when La Prensa was losing the license, the print runs had to have been minuscule. And they weren't even distributed outside of Mexico, and that's why those are so hard. That's why you can find good La Prensas. I once pulled 3 Mexican 227s out of Uruguay in a matter of 6 months. So you could find them in other Spanish-speaking parts of Latin America. So that's what the non-canons are. The non-canons are books that the Mexican La Prensa editors and writers and artists believed they had permission for, and then you have the guys at Marvel during that time that said no, they would have never allowed it. So all these people saying that they, that Marvel should translate them and repackage them probably isn't going to happen, because the official line at Marvel is that these are bootlegs, and at least that's what I think. I think the official line would probably be bootlegs, especially now that Disney owns Marvel. They're not going to reprint what they consider outside of the canon. I mean, maybe.
Did that happen?
I don't know.
Did that outside of the canon stuff happen with any other titles? That type of thing?
Yes, it did.
Definitely.
That took that big of a, the Gwen Stacy thing was such a big deal to have that change like that. Did that type of change happen on any other characters?
Maybe on characters that weren't so big. I think in Mexico, in the Kung Fu, during the Mac run, they were making up completely new stories. Off the top of my head, I can't think of one that's as big as that.
No,
there also is some stuff called transcreation material, and that's stuff that lives outside of canon for a specific region. So the transcreation material, which is still pretty rare as well, is like Marvel saying, yeah, go ahead and make a comic book that's in Dutch that is Peter going over to the Netherlands or something. I'm not as good on that stuff, but it does exist. In fact, there's a guy that collects trans creation material, but that stuff's actually approved by Marvel. The non-canons would be outside of the approval process. Indonesia, you see a lot of that with the bootlegging, and especially Japan. When we get to the Japanese Playboy,
we're down to like 30, 35, 40 minutes. Can you show the Japan Spidey? Because to me, that is the most mind-blowing thing in the world.
I also heard what Japanese Playboy? What?
How did you know that? Paul, you gotta log off. You can't watch this.
I do have something else. I don't know if Z, if there's time, I wanted to show my Russian books to Matt. All right, so what's this?
Weekly Japanese Playboy, issue 32, published by Shueisha in 1976.
Kind of hold it at an angle so it takes.
Sorry.
There you go.
And back a little bit towards you.
There you go.
There you go. Perfect.
Right there. Perfect.
It contains the guts of the retelling of Amazing Fantasy 15 story in the beginning. It's the origin story written by Stan Lee, but it was published in the Spectacular Spider-Man magazine, the black and white magazine. So they took the Amazing Fantasy story and they redid the art, and I think Stan Lee rewrote it or something. But so they took that. But the thing that makes this book so interesting is that it was licensed. It was officially licensed. Marvel's licensing department said, "You want to put a Spidey origin story in a Playboy?" And they said yes. And they said, "Okay, that'll be such and such dollars, and let's do it."
I'm pretty sure Stan made that deal.
Okay, so I've got pictures. I've got pictures of the interior. Will you let me? Can I share my screen myself?
Yeah. This is crazy.
There's Splash.
And it's almost got an anime feel to it.
Yep. It kind of does. And remember, manga is read right to left, just like Hebrew and Arabic.
Blows my mind. This is the craziness that I didn't even know was crazy till recently.
Now, remember that the Spider-Man black and white in that magazine, that art was in black and white. It was never colorized. So the Japanese colorized it themselves. This is a comparison of the two side by side.
Oh, wow. Yeah, definitely. If you guys are listening to this, do yourself a favor and watch this on YouTube. This is unreal.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's like they did the mirror image.
Yeah, because they had to, because manga's read right to left. The Arabic and the Hebrew editions are the same. The stuff is mirrored. In the Arabic Superman has a 5 on his chest.
Why?
Because
it's backward.
So it looks like.
And the red is really
because wait. Because in Arabic, so they just literally flipped it and it turned into a 5, or it's
I gotta write it backwards.
Yeah, because the art's flipped horizontally.
So okay, so it should be an S, but because they just literally flipped it, it's in a 5.
It's a 5.
This story, if for those of you listening, is literally all in red tones and gray tones.
It's beautiful.
There's an
example. It actually looks great.
It looks great, right?
If you're a Spider-Man guy, this is the book you need.
And this is the first licensed Spidey in Japan, but it wasn't the first Spidey in Japan because Japan had bootleg Spideys going on, handled very well.
Yeah, this is crazy. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do some crazy intro to this. This whole episode's awesome. But I love that red. The red pops. The red really pops.
Yeah, they did. They handled the color really well. Look at that.
And it's great that you have, it's great you have the PDFs or the scans or whatever to share.
It's really great that pages aren't stuck together and all.
So how rare is this book, Matt?
This book is pretty tough.
Like you had to find a Playboy online in America. Where are you gonna find it? Like a retro one. It's tough.
It's tough, but well, see, again, this is kind of the key to this niche. sorry, JF. The key to this part of the hobby is contacts. Remember, we've all become so fucking spoiled with eBay. We've all become so spoiled with Metropolis and all these big dealers. Guess what? If you want to play in this side of the pool, you're gonna have to use that part of the muscle that we used to have to use in the 60s to collect comic books.
And so here's another question, Matt, that just popped in my head is, what's the age range for this? Because you got these young guys who all they know is eBay and Midtown and My Comic Shop and all that.
That's a crazy image.
Yeah, I know. Get that black box out.
I can't because I would have taken the black bar out, but this was for a Facebook post. So
no, it's good. It's good. No, we're as we
would probably get banned from YouTube too.
We're looking for people that are being idiots and aren't watching this on YouTube. We're looking at on one page, it's Spider-Man, and he's holding. Is that Aunt May? I can't tell. Or is that the
Uncle Ben dead?
Okay, Uncle Ben, and then the other page is a naked woman. I mean, it's like,
that is actually the most poignant image I've seen of comics.
Yes, unreal.
Like they could have chosen any other page in this story to do this.
Marvel Comics didn't give a fuck.
But
I'm pretty sure with great power comes great responsibilities.
Especially when you're looking at a great pair of tits, right?
He had his head on his forehead, slamming it like, are those tits or is Uncle Ben dead?
But Matt, like, so what's the age range? You see the guys who, or does it take a certain age, or does it take a certain
most of the people collecting this stuff are older.
Yeah,
like the younger
I think
guys.
The same as 35 to 45, maybe 50.
And I think the other thing is it takes you got to be in the field for a certain amount of time before you even realize that this exists. And then by the time you realize it exists, it's like, well, where do I find it? And then you stumble into this group of guys who have been doing it, and it's like, hey, welcome to the club. We're all
and you guys are all welcome to join us at our Facebook page. There's guys, hardcore collectors showing stuff. This is the other beautiful thing about this. We're learning about this stuff. Where other place in comic books is there stuff that's never been known before? Where you as a collector can find stuff out and share it with guys, and it not be common knowledge already. Think about that.
I'm an idiot in your group. Like I make Paul look like a genius there. And I was, about to post my post that thinking I was the man. And Les posted another crow, and I'm like, wait, that doesn't match mine.
Robert
has 4 editions of the damn same book.
You know what it reminds me of is an episode of the anime Cowboy Bebop where there was a VHS tape that had some vital information on it. And they had the tape, but they couldn't find a VHS player. And they had to hunt to the ends of some whatever planet they went to. Like it just runs parallels to that where you have one piece of the puzzle but not the other. And it's crazy. I love it. It's awesome.
If we didn't have foreign guys in CBSI, like a couple of dudes that helped me out, Inigo, my man, who I need to send some shit to again, I would have nothing. And if Matt hadn't hooked me up with some guys, I would know jack and shit.
Well, that's kind of the thing is you gotta be social, and you've gotta, if you want to get into this stuff, you got to start looking to the older guys. I love kind of mentoring some of the younger guys that are dipping their toes into this. There's no value, there's no overstreet price guide to guide you.
You almost can't say no too. If you find a book, unless it is crazy, you almost have to just think, will I see it again?
I got a question, I guess, for being a new person to this too. So, like we always talk about when you start, we always lose money on books when you start collecting in comics and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Where do you think you start at? Like, say if you're a guy who's never collected foreigns before, what do you think you start at, or like, what's a good buy-in point? What do you usually?
American eBay.
Okay.
American eBay has so many more options now, because foreign sellers know Americans pay stupid money for books.
What are safe investments when it comes like Spider-Man stuff?
Safe investments would be.
Here's how Dino should phrase the question: what are the best sets to build?
Oh God, somebody's dying.
Anything that's key. In the hardcore foreign, groups. Key books are even more special than even in an American world where it's very few people are building runs of foreign stuff. It's because there's just too much of it, right? There are some hardcore guys that are building like the Death of Superman, the Run. They'll find and they'll seek that that small storyline out. All over the world, and they'll try to find that, and they'll do that. But like someone trying to build a run from, saying, or they'll pick up a group. They'll say, I want to try to build the run 1 through 10 of Spider-Man from all over the world that I can get. The top Spawn collector in the world, he's built Spawn 1 through 10 all over the world, and he has it complete. And that includes Japan, where there was like 15 different printings of each issue.
But what do you see? So what do you see someone? So is 1 to 10 the standard, or 1 to 5, or does it depend on the rarity? Or
it would depend. Well, it would be single issues. Very very few people are delving into the run stuff.
I think ASM 300.
If it's a key, Spider-Man 300 is a biggie. But so really, what this is what I tell young guys: pick a cover that you like, and then seek that cover out all over the world.
So going crazy and doing both would just be over the top.
Unless you got shitloads of money.
Hey, we got shitloads of money here.
Ask a small question. How many versions of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are there?
Right,
is there anybody collecting?
Yes, there are people seeking out Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. In fact,
all right, now I got to be the presenter because Z jumped some topics. Now you got to.
Oh goodness!
So,
and some of them
set you up when you hit a home run.
Like for example, I have a Swedish first. It's the Yojimbo. I always forgot to say it.
Yeah, Usagi Yojimbo.
Usagi Yojimbo. That first issue.
Albedo.
Yeah, that was done in some different countries. I have the Swedish one of that. So you would be surprised, even if it was like an independent book or whatnot. You would be able to find it. You just gotta.
Dino, can you share my camera then so I can show Matt some of the stuff I got?
Yeah, I'm gonna see it. Here, let me back out of this. Oh, yeah, I gotta go to Chrome.
So
Change your shirt.
Yeah, let me know when you got me on screen now.
You're good, dude. Hit it up.
I don't know if Matt, you got me.
Yeah.
Why'd you change your shirt?
So I got the Russian.
Nice.
So I got the IDW. The IDW
nice.
The connecting set a couple of years ago, and from the same seller, I got, and these are like you said, the size matters. The different size.
Did you just change shirts?
Nice.
So
yeah, he did.
Change shirts.
So I got it. So for the same seller, I picked up the issue,
nice.
The first few that he had. So I don't know if I want to delve down the hole of other countries, but I was like, I just thought it was cool.
Well, the Russian stuff is so cool because of the acrylic language.
Yeah.
Now Russia didn't really get a lot of stuff until the USSR fell. Okay. Yeah. Once the USSR fell, then you started seeing a whole lot more American pop culture get all into there. Most of the Russian editions are relatively modern. There are a few that buck that trend, but even still, how much you want to bet that the print runs for those books are minuscule, very small.
Yeah, those are definitely PC.
And the publishers in Russia that are publishing American material, there's more of them now, but a lot of them are like boutique-y publisher places that, I can think of. I've got a Russian Hellboy that's at CBCS right now. That were just done in really small numbers. There's some Russian Star Wars New Hope stuff that was done from DC, but anything Russian is super cool. I mean, if you can get it,
it was unique, and the price was reasonable. It was a couple of years ago. I can't remember off the top of my head how much I paid, but it was obviously low enough for me to buy it at the time, and it was PC, and I got it, and I might get them graded someday, and we'll see what the CGC label says. But
don't go CGC.
Don't go CGC. Send it to CBCS.
All right.
Talk about that real quick, Matt.
Do it now, so you get.
The issue is, but Paul's collecting turtles, magazine size, maybe not done at CBCS.
That is a problem.
These are small though. These are smaller though.
Well, then you can make it. I'm just saying that
you can do it.
I've looked at books, and you're like, they can't do it.
If you want it notated correctly, send it to CBCS. Sorry, CGC fanboys, but that's the reality.
Size matters at CBCS.
The reason is because Tim Bildhauser, my friend and co-editor in the magazine, he knows his shit.
What's that?
This is the guy at IndieCon that comes talks to us every year about foreigns.
Oh, yeah, we know Tim.
You didn't know. I don't think you realized who we're talking about. This is the guy that's always showing me pics and talking about stuff. That's Tim.
What is now? Were we there in 2013? Was that me and you's first con?
Oh, we went in I went with the kids in 2013 and saw Matt and Tim. 2014, you and I were with the Turtles and our boy.
So Matt, there are you said what other countries have the turtles?
There's some Chinese bootleg turtles that are pretty cool.
He's writing it down in his notebook, Paul.
I'm just debating if I want to
go down the rabbit hole, Paul. Come with me.
There's some Chinese turtle bootlegs that are super cool. I think I've actually seen some Greek stuff.
Oh my God, Greek would be so cool.
Because I'm not a huge Turtles fan. I'd have to ask one of the other guys that know more about the Turtles. But I swear I've seen some Chinese bootlegs that are awesome.
So this is a good question. So talking about this, like within the hardcore niche, how many guys are there, and how many guys do you think there's peripherally kind of just floating around dabbling? Like I collect a couple of series. How many guys are doing that? How many are like in the hardcore group? How big is this hobby?
I'd say in the hardcore group that we know through the FCC kind of reality, maybe 50 super hardcore guys around the world. Then outside of that, peripherally, there could be a couple hundred maybe that seek out these books.
There's people.
I'm gonna have to join your Facebook group.
Yeah, there's people in the chat right now who are like getting into forums as we're talking about it right now. It's terrible. It's a good thing, but
that's awesome.
There are some dicks getting hard right now. I'm gonna tell you.
How much time do we have, guys? Because there's one book I wanted to share.
We got a little time.
Yeah, we got probably 30 minutes, 15 minutes.
Okay, so let me run through this real quick, okay?
At some point, you need to show some sets.
Yeah, I will. Okay. This is one of the jewels of my foreign collection.
That is a beautiful book.
This is the South African Fantastic Four #1.
With a green background, white monster. It is beautiful. God, if you guys are not watching YouTube, Jesus Christ, please do.
It's published by Republican Press. The book does not contain the guts, but it contains the story from FF95. And it has the intact poster. Now, the reason that's important is because most of these South African books, the kids took the poster out. The South African books are extremely hard to source. Like I said, there's a local cabal of South African collectors that they don't even know. Like they're so hard to find that even in their country of origin, there's no database. There's some hardcore collectors.
South Africa and Philippines are really, really tough ones.
Really, really tough.
And what's funny about the Philippines, I see a lot of my comic shop every so often. They just have a whole list of Philippines foreign collection variants on there. It's crazy. I don't know what to buy. Some go, some don't. I don't know.
Well, the guy that's selling those, I know him. His name's Terry.
Oh.
If it resembles a key, buy it.
Honestly, if it's a Filipino book at all, buy it. But I'll go into that in a second. So I'm going to share my screen here. This is an amazing book. So for every FF1 that exists, right, there might be for every 1,000 there might be one SA. There might be one South African. They're that hard to find. In fact, in America, this is only one of 2. The other one that we know of does not have the intact poster. And I'm going to share some of the contents of the interior.
You have the poster?
Yeah.
Is this a Thor poster or a different one?
It's the Thor.
Oh, that's a fucking great poster. My God.
And I again, Matt, I love that you have this all set up. And again, YouTube,
I was not
that you have
not fucking around.
Yeah, you have the screen
presentation. Okay.
I love that. That's
so here's the interior.
I want a tiger popsicle.
That's great color too.
Yeah, the quality was pretty good.
But some of these goddamn posters are amazing.
Oh wow!
There's another interior.
The Crimson Dynamo cover.
How many? So here's another Paul question, Matt. How many of these guys went off to war and brought some of these comics back? Like
a lot.
See,
we think a lot did.
Night to shine. Love it.
A lot of the best conditioned Filipinos are guys that were stationed in the Philippines that escaped. They escaped the 100% humidity and the craziness of the jungles there.
Think of keeping a comic collection in the jungle with no bag on board, guys.
This is the poster, intact.
Like live in Florida with no air conditioning, and then add hurricanes.
Who did that art?
That art is from a Spanish artist. That's a Spanish artist out of Spain.
Don't say his name, or one of our. It'll be a store variant before we know it.
It was a Vertice artist out of Spain, and I have his name written down somewhere, but I'd have to look it up. But
two people that do Thor better, and I won't name either one, but is Marvel Premiere 10.
But this is the deal, guys. Superman comics or Super Comics was on the right side of history. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to stop sharing here.
It's that bottom. It should be right there in front.
Oh yeah, I feel like an idiot. It's right here.
No, you're doing good, man.
Yeah, you're doing really
good stuff. I guarantee you, it's going to be our most downloaded episode.
Okay, I think it's off. Okay,
there you go.
So there's something about foreign comics that also makes them social and cultural artifacts. Okay, they're not just the comic. In South Africa, during the time that these super comics were getting produced, apartheid was in full swing. It was the two systems equal but two systems thing. Whites and blacks weren't supposed to mix. They weren't supposed to mix in media. There were censors in South Africa. There was a lot of stuff going on at the time. They were also kind of under a magnifying glass for the world because so many people knew about the injustices of apartheid. Now in South Africa, they would sometimes have like a magazine, like there'd be a woman's magazine. Well, there'd be the white one and the one for the black people. There'd be a newspaper. There'd be a white newspaper and a black person newspaper. On TV, there would be a show that had just white people and a show that just had black people. Now, as you went down the cultural importance of some of the stuff, then you saw more race mixing. But the government was doing everything it can to try to show the race mixing in a positive, or they were trying to show the two separate systems but equal in a positive light. So race mixing wasn't really something that the censors wanted to show a whole lot, right? So super comics would have competitions. In those posters or in their books, they'd have little things where a kid could write and fill out and send it in and win a Walkman or something, right? So kids would write in there, they'd mail it in, and if they won a Walkman, they would, I think, with their coupon, they'd send in a picture of themselves. So Super Comics will then show the winners of those items on the back of posters, right? Now, at this time in South Africa, of course, like you said, as a publisher, you could choose to show a separate but equal reality, which, as we now know, is the horrors of apartheid. Super Comics was on the right side of history. And the reason they were on the right side of history was they didn't have any qualms showing a little black boy and a little white kid, or a little white girl or a little white boy on, in their media. So here you have prize winners, right? They're showing some prize winners. Mm-hmm. This is a poster of Mick Jagger. Remember, these posters are really rare, right?
Yeah.
And right here You see Albert Machita.
That's amazing.
Printed with a white kid. Black, white, on the same page, right side of history. Censors didn't fuck with comic books because it was considered throwaway trash entertainment. Republican Comics was on the right side of history there.
That's freaking amazing.
This is a cultural artifact. This comic was living through apartheid. What if the kid that bought this comic off the stands, was experienced crazy violence? Something we call in the hobby too, or we call them conflict books. You've heard of the term conflict diamonds, right?
Yep.
A conflict diamond is a diamond that comes, found its way to the market in a situation that wasn't ideal, and people don't want to hear about how some organization or some militia in Africa was using child soldiers to dig the conflict diamonds out. So we use the conflict book term to describe books that came out of countries that were going through shit that maybe a basic collector didn't have time to go, oh, I need to keep my comic book collecting pristine. Well, what if you're in Sarajevo and you have EKSs? So the Yugoslavian EKSs, during the siege of Sarajevo in the 80s, there were constant shelling. They were trying to get food. There were snipers all around. How many EKSs got burned for fuel because there was no electricity? So there's conflict comics that are involved in this too. And the Republican press stuff was on the right side of history. Now, there are books that are on the wrong side of history as well. This was a book that I received recently. It's from Chile.
This is a beautiful fucking book.
It's the Chilean Iron Man #1.
Wow.
El Hombre de Hierro issue 3, published in 1978 by Editorial Nacional Gabriela Mistral. It contains the guts from Iron Man 5, and it's got a backup story from Iron Man 3. Now, it doesn't have, the classic Iron Man 1, but it's got the classic Gene Colan artwork. Why the publisher chose to cover up his old shellhead face, I don't know. I think that was stupid, but it gives it...
is beautiful. The coloring is just a little off American.
But it's still a beautiful book, and I'm building the Iron Man 1 set, so I have to have it. Now, very quickly, why this one wasn't good, and what I consider on the wrong side of history, was the publisher that published this used to be called Quimantu. And Quimantu produced materials, kind of leftist materials, but materials for the common man. They actually produced cultural tomes and books dealing with art, dealing with satire, and they even did not use the normal book distribution because they thought it was too expensive. They published and sold directly to the people. When the Pinochet government came into power, so we were fooling around down there, the CIA was fooling around. We propped up Pinochet. We wanted Allende, who was the democratically elected president. We wanted him out because he was left-leaning. This was, at the height of the Cold War. The war on communism was going on, and we did some really nasty things down in South America and Central America. The Pinochet military junta tortured people. I mean, just research it a little bit. They had something called free helicopter rides. If you were considered an enemy of the regime, they flew you up in a helicopter and at 1,000 feet just kicked your ass out the helicopter. That was called a free helicopter ride. Pinochet closed down Quimantu, shut it down, boom, done. Then a year later, after they've been in power for a while, reopened it as Gabriel Mistral. Gabriel Mistral then started publishing neoliberalist ideals, all kinds of different stuff, and got the license from Marvel Comics and started publishing Marvel Comics. And why not? Remember that during the 70s, a lot of our superheroes were sort of considered capitalist propaganda, especially in left-leaning nations. Greece is a nation. One of the reasons the Cabanas Hellas are so hard to find is because when they were on the stands, there were little kids whose parents, whose dad might have been taken and tortured and killed by the military junta that we supported in Greece. So they weren't all that into Captain America. Not when Captain America, the American government, was supporting a military coup that killed your dad, right? So these books are not just comics, they're also these kind of cultural and societal touchstones. This Iron Man is on the wrong side of history. Does that mean that I love it any less? No, doesn't mean that. But it makes these books special in a way that you can't apply to American comic books. Here's the Chile Iron Man 1. There's the splash. Now, since I've gotten this book, we've found out that we think it's actually a price variant. I won't go into the great detail about why, but we think it's either we're thinking it's now probably a second printing by Gabriel Mistral, and the first printing I don't have. Still rare as shit. It's only the third one that I know of in the States, and it's probably the nicest conditioned one that I've seen.
I love the backstory of the like you were saying, the right and wrong side of history. I think that makes those books so much greater than a lot of the stuff that we're talking about now that is pulling in all this money. Kind of like the same thing where some of the the Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams Green Lantern books, why they're such big deals, or the Spider-Man books, with the drug use and the non-code books and stuff like that. So I think that's pretty damn cool.
And I think
it's definitely a good point to kind of end the show on. And
that's what I was gonna say. We can definitely do a part 2 on this.
I still got books to show.
I'd like to hit on. So, what happens if our little group of people meet Matt's little group of people? The Speckers meet the foreign variant. What happens to those countries that all of a sudden there's money flowing into because we want these books that bad?
That's already happened, though, right?
That's already happening.
Like, there's like 100 guys looking for shit. What if?
What are there 3,000 people?
1,000 guys. 3,000 guys.
What would happen is you would probably see a rush of stuff that would come out, because what's happening in the foreign markets is American money is going into there. Not only do you have American collectors now seeking this stuff out, there's actually some dealers seeking this stuff out. They realize how cool it is and they want it for their, to either speculate on or to have. But as we've seen in some of these foreign back issue markets, I'll give an example. Italy was one. The Italian 300 was getting bought up by Americans on Italian eBay a bunch. My Italian contacted me and say, hey, will you go into this Italian comic book forum and tell these guys there's not a conspiracy going on? Why? These Italian collectors all thought that some of these Italian dealers were abnormally inflating these prices. But what they didn't realize was that these Italian dealers were going through their Italian 300 so fast because Americans were buying them, or foreign sellers were buying them to sell on American eBay.
And I guess that brings us down a rabbit hole too. And we can maybe talk about this next time.
Just so I can fucking cry.
Yeah. Well, let's. Matt, I guess let's just add to this is what do you think of speculators? I guess I know you're a collector. What do you think of speculators?
I don't have a problem with it, but the problem, my concern with the foreign market is that it's a pretty tight cabal. Everyone knows everyone, and even the guys that I don't know, I probably know someone that knows them. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's such a tight-knit kind of group. The fear has always been that speculators would get into the foreign market and kind of ruin it. And what I mean by ruin is, there's kind of positive and negatives to everything, right? So we'd love to see these books increase in value, but then at the same time, one of the things we loved about this part of the hobby was you didn't have to spend an arm and a leg. That Fantastic Four #1, do you know? Guess how much I paid for it?
No. Yeah, the crazy part of me would be like $200 or $300, but now I bet it's like what, $5?
$35.
I paid $100 for it.
Okay.
But
but like I fucking screwed you guys with the Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, no, nobody's gonna pay that.
Yeah, we didn't think John, what the book that John got, that he paid for it kind of blew us all away. And we were like, holy shit, because even those non-canons, even as recently, like John was saying, even as recently as a year ago, you could find the non-key ones for even $25-30. You could find that Mexican Gwen Stacy Peter wedding issue. You might have to pay $150 or $200, but you could find it. But now, as we're seeing these prices rise, so really what it comes down to is, if you're speculating and you're trying to flip, the foreign market is kind of a dangerous market. This is why, because there's not enough people there's not enough hardcores that are willing to spend money in it yet.
Correct.
So if you buy something, I mean, there are like, there's some big sales. Spider-Man 1 was recently sold. I think Mexicans, Hombre Rana, I think it went for 1,000 or a little above that, maybe 1,200. I forget. But there are people that'll drop a couple grand on foreigns, but there's not enough of them to really once some of the guys that are willing to spend 20-30 grand on a high grade Golden Age book, or once they find foreigns and actually give it a little bit of respect and start to realize like a South African FF1 is going to be infinitely rarer than any FF1 from the 60s that you can find, or even the relatively recent stuff like John Spider-Man 300. You can take the boot of Italy and fit it in Florida, right? What do you think those print runs were like? They were tiny, tiny, tiny. So what's going to happen if speculators get in there? There might be a rush of books that come to market, and then it's going to dry up.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to dry up.
I think something cool that we could do is watching how this changes the market, and have you come on, and talk about this side of the market, because I think this is one of the most interesting shows, at least for us. I know for me, this has been one of the really cool shows where, when you learn information like this.
I think there's a parallel between this and when we spotlighted the DCU variants a couple years ago, because those were kind of underground as well, where there wasn't like a huge following, but those people that were in the know, they knew how hard some of those were to find. And when when we started publishing them, all of a sudden the prices did go up, but those ones that they were actually trying to find and didn't know if they really even existed, they were hoping that some of those might actually filter out, and some of those still have not filtered out.
And they didn't. So now they don't know if they're gone.
One DCU to save my life.
Yeah, I mean, some of them have surfaced, and they're where they thought that there was only 2 or 3, in existence, and there's been 1 or 2 pop up here and there, and so I think it reaffirms the ridiculous rarity of what you already, what those people already knew, but then it does actually, people are like, oh my gosh, this thing, one sold for $500. And there's been no others listed for the last 8 months. Yeah, that thing is really, really hard, because now people know about it and they still can't find it.
Well, it's like your Wonder Woman book. Your is that the Canadian price variant Wonder Woman, a $2 one? Is it a $2 Wonder Woman?
Yeah, the $2.
Remember, you said it was like impossible to find, and all of a sudden, it's still impossible to find, but you've seen more and more come up since it's been highlighted, obviously.
Right, but I mean I think I think it's the perfect parallel with these DCUs, is just because there was like this little hidden
hardcore group,
this little hidden group of people that bought them and they wanted them and they got them for cheap, and then once some other people were like, oh man, some of these are really cool looking, but it just hasn't. It still hasn't, the number that is still really small of what they thought initially was correct, that there just really weren't that many.
This Mexican Spidey to me is the barometer, because that's what the topic at hand. People are talking about it. People are looking at it. I have some doubles. I'm not selling shit, because I will probably not see another at a reasonable price.
Yeah.
But there's cool variants. I mean, Batman books. There's some issues where he's wearing purple, he's wearing pink, he's wearing crazy stuff, and people are going to see this and go, I need that. Oh, you're going to pull one out.
Pink Batman?
Speaking of Batman,
I don't know. Batman 227 is probably one of the top sets.
Like that one.
Wow.
See that?
Okay, I need that.
That is the Batman E-Ball 227. Notice that kind of pastel-y coloring?
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful?
That's awesome.
Holy crap! What is that? What year was that made?
This one was made in 1971.
That's beautiful.
It was published by E-Ball, Editorial Brazil, America. October of 1971. And this book has the guts and a backup story. The problem with this book, though, is that E-Ball, for whatever reason, did not receive the American color sets. So they had to color everything on their own. Did they use American books to guide how they colored? We don't know. We think maybe they did, but they did funky shit. Like Spidey's 129 with his subdued skull.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Without the color sets, the publisher had to just either wing it or maybe they used an American guide, but they did their own coloring. Now, the interiors are black and white on these. Now, we're not quite sure why Brazil didn't get, maybe they, in order to get they had to pay more money to get the color sets from Marvel. But most of the E-Ball stuff, with the exception of some called M Colores, which have color on the interiors, do not have color. So we think that is because they maybe had a cheaper licensing deal. We don't know. All I know is that this is one of the nicest conditioned E-Ball 227s that I've ever found in my life. And when it comes to what it looks like, I don't have my American here to tell it side by side, but you can, you don't have Robin. A lot of the clutter's gone, and then another big difference you'll notice is in the fog. The American fog is just those wisps. This one's more, and also the on the American version, it's got the kind of black sep Spidey. This one's like a bluish color.
Yep. I'm looking at it right now.
This is a beautiful 227, and to shut the show down, because I know John was really pushing for this.
Smack me with this one, please. Yeah.
I'm gonna show just some real quick sets, okay? And then because I know you guys need to go.
No, we definitely gotta. I think
we gotta wrap up
to have you come back on.
Yeah, this definitely has to be like a part 2 or 3. This is crazy. Like now, I'm getting like that Batman 227 is ridiculous, man.
It's ridiculous, right?
The guys get their appetite wet.
We're gonna now it's gonna be foreign variants. It's gonna be terrible,
I got a
man.
227 to compare it.
So this is the 227 set. Okay.
Wow.
Oh, that is beautiful.
It's got the American, it's got the Mexican. It's got the French next to that. It's got the beautiful. This is my old 227. I sold my
227 to me, like actually watching the numbers, is one of the sets that sells for the most premium.
Yes,
no matter the market.
It's one of the biggest seeked set, but it's got some toughies. Do you see that Planet Comics there on the bottom? That's the Australian Tip Top. That book is really freaking hard, but notice how it's got like a reddish tint to it. Mm-hmm. It's really red.
We got an Australian hookup. We could probably find one of those.
Yeah, if you can find one, but now the Australian collectors know that Americans are paying stupid money for them, so they can be kind of hard to find. But look at this Brazilian, how clean that is in comparison to the American. Mm-hmm. The American's cluttered with all this added shit. The Brazilian just has its little box. The French Canadian here had to. I think they didn't get the Batman in the color sets.
So they had to draw it themselves. It's crude.
Are those counterfeited very often? Since we don't know what a real one's supposed to look like.
I doubt
they can be. Well, you mean counterfeited?
I don't think they're counterfeited because there used to be money in them.
Well, but in Brazil, there is an issue with some of the Brazilians, and I could go off on a tangent on that.
There you go, Scotty. There's all you, buddy.
There's the 300s. The Hungarian's one of the toughest. The Greek, we once paid Hector, I believe, is the one that paid $30 just for a scan to prove it existed. Yeah. Back in the old days, we had to really bust our asses to research this stuff. Avengers 57. The redone by this. This is the redone Spain one.
That Uncanny Tales one's dope, man.
Yeah, that one is UK. That's an Allen class.
I've seen one of those before, and I wish I would have grabbed it. I feel like an idiot now.
It's an Allen class. You saw the 227. Here's the Iron Man 55. I'm only missing the pence. This is the French Canadian and the Greek, which is tough.
Get a pence for love of God.
Yeah, well, I can get one. I just haven't spent the money on it because I know that I can get one whenever I want.
It's not that hard.
Here's the Spawn, my complete Spawn set. One of 2 on the planet, I believe, including the really tough rare Filipino. Spectacular 60.
Filipino? Can you go back and zoom in on the Filipino?
Yeah, hold on. See, I don't know why it's not letting me.
Oh, hit dismiss there, or what is it? The blue button?
Yeah, there we go.
Oh,
there we
yeah,
go.
sorry, yeah.
Okay, so the Filipino was one of the last ones I got.
What is the one that looks like an ash can, like the one that's really small?
That one is the Thai, and it's cool. It's got a dust cover. When you take the dust cover off, it's got a magenta of the front. It's really cool. The Italian's the only one that uses image. This is the Bulgarian, believe it or not. That's a Bulgarian. The Greek, the German. A really tough one for me to find was the Hungarian. That's the Hungarian right there.
I would love to know if Todd McFarlane even has these.
I don't know. I don't think so. I was telling. This is the Chile. This is the Filipino, but it's the Universal Bookstore version. Extremely rare. You'd be amazed how rare and difficult that book is. That was the last book that guy Trent at Spawn World needed to complete it. One of the last ones, and I had to help him with he couldn't find it. I had to help him with my Filipino contact. This is the Turkish. This has been a labor of love for me, and it's complete and all over the world, man.
Until you find another.
Yeah, until another one pops up. My Spider-Man 50, I need to get an American one soon. We're still going.
That's what shows you, though, because you just I can get an American one someday.
Yeah, I just don't need it. I just need the money. 201. Yeah. The 201 is super cool. Look how the Australian Yaffa flipped the target. Yeah, American, right? You go on. French Canadian, I like the blue, right? But look at the Australian Yaffa. They flipped the target so that the red and the whites were different. Oh. The large-sized EKS, Yugoslavian. Remember I was talking about conflict books? That's the EKS. That came out of Yugoslavia before it shattered into its many pieces. The Lomo Ragno Italian, this was an extremely expensive book because this is issue 1. Do you see how there's a 1 there? So, but this was a really rare book because for whatever reason, the print runs were really small. Do you see adhesive right there? Adhesive? That means it comes with stickers. And this one has intact stickers, which makes it very difficult to find. It's a very expensive book. The Turkish and then the one of the Indonesians. There's a second one that I can't find that I've been waiting. My Indonesian contact has not been able to find it. I was the first one to complete the Star Wars 1 set.
Speaking of contacts and stuff, as you're going through this, what do you pay a percentage for your contacts to hook up? I mean, can you divulge that kind of?
Yeah, on some you always pay finder's fees for contacts, but usually once a contact becomes a friend, then you help them. You help them find. A lot of these contacts are also foreign collectors. That's what's so neat, guys. I've got friends all over the world that I never would have had if it wasn't for this niche. When shit goes wrong in the world, like my Greece contacts, when they were having those austerity riots in Greece and people were killing themselves in the fucking parks, I contacted my Greek contacts. Said, "You guys okay? Is everything okay?" Typhoon goes through the Philippines. I contact my buddy Glenn. Is everything okay? The typhoon went through there. It really makes you. This niche makes you a global citizen. Look what the Greeks did here. They kept the Star Wars, but they readjusted. The Spanish is a redrawn cover. Notice it's redrawn. There's some things missing. The second Japanese.
That's cool. I like the Japanese.
The Indonesian. was completely redone by Jean Midaraga. That's another thing we could go into. Oh, and the Arabic spine on the right. See that?
Yeah. What's the one that's blue and white?
That is an ad. I included in my set. It's an ad on the back of a UK.
Okay. That's actually pretty neat. I like that.
It is. There's the super rare, super comic Star Wars. Probably the toughest, one of the toughest to find. And not only that, I've got. What's up?
Star Wars is a bitch of a set.
It is a bitch of a set. That one in the hobby, in this part of the hobby, we like to call them ghosts. That's a ghost. That's a ghost. This one can be found, but it's hard. This Filipino one right here, that's a ghost. That one can be found relatively okay. The second Japanese. At one point in time, the Colombian Greeks were ghosts, or the Colombian South American Star Wars 1. This one was a ghost, but then someone found like a warehouse find of them, and then now a whole bunch kind of came out. So that's another interesting thing. Stuff that seems rare, and then something happens, and then all of a sudden it's not rare anymore.
That happens in modern comics now for us, and like variants and stuff.
The Greek can be very tough. The French Canadian is blue, and it's mixed up. This was a later EH editions Heritage. The later EHs are tough to find from the 80s because the company was going out, because in Canada, the EHs were mainly sold on the rack. They weren't sold in comic book stores. Yep. One of my favorites, my Tomb of Dracula. Classic Neil Adams. Beautiful. The Australian Jaffa, extremely hard. The Italian with see the adhesive right there, stickers, very rare to find with the stickers. I've got stickers. The EKS, look how they spelled Dracula with a K. Dracula. The UK flipped the artwork, and then this one's really hard. The Mexican Mac is almost unbelievably hard to find. This is a Brazilian that doesn't even have the guts, but they used Neil's vampire on that. Sorry, the picture to get close. And this is one of the most well put together one. I forget if it's Denmark or Sweden. I always get the Nordic countries mixed up. My Nordic friends are going to be mad at me, but it's super awesome. It's got like a little portraiture of Drac, and then the cool text. Awesome stuff, man. And I actually have a Mexican, another Mexican that uses the artwork in the mail on its way to me. So I will be updating this set soon. And then there's other guys in the set. So we made posters. This is a Vampirella 1 poster.
Vampirella 1 is my fave.
I created this poster, and the collector, his name is Stefan. He's a hardcore foreign collector, and Vampy's one of his favorites. This is a poster that if you want to print it yourself, I can send you the file, and it's like, I forget how big it is, but it's super cool. And some are extremely rare. The Chile one, extremely freaking rare, unbelievably rare. This one right here. So it's just, set building is where it's kind of one way you can show people, but even looking
one more time, if you're not watching this on YouTube, you are messing up.
Yeah.
Even if you fast forward, you are seeing stuff you will not see again.
Yeah. Hey, how about we
so anyway, we can finish.
Yeah, we can finish this off, and then we can come part 2. I mean, you're more welcome to come back at any time, dude.
Just punch me in the face. Show me your fucking ASM 300 Italian.
Oh, okay.
Just punch me in the face. End it all. Me and Emiliano Beggs are gonna go cry in our fucking cereal.
Real quick, while he does this, I was looking through one of the Spanish or the Mexican Batman ones, and I noticed this ad in the back, and this guy's name is Pablo Marcos. Is he maybe one of the artists? And it almost
could be.
I don't know if you can see that. It almost looks like it's the whole Gwen Stacy.
Kind of.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I've seen that ad before, but I don't know the name. I'll have to ask. Those 2 books you have, Brian, hold on to them. There's guys looking for those, At some point, if you ever want to flip them, just contact me, and they will contact you.
I love hearing that. Always love hearing that.
You scored.
Gretzky.
I was about to say I have a Gretzky rookie I got to buy, so they will be available.
9.4, highest graded Italian.
That's such a beautiful cover.
So me and Emiliano have 2 of 3 or 4 of the 9.2 CGCs, and Matt has the only 9.4 out of CBCS.
Yep.
The book is impossible.
Yeah, because it's a cardstock cover. So right here along the spine, if they didn't put the book in a bag right away, it gets scuffed. Yeah. It gets scuffed. And because it's a cardstock cover, remember I was talking about Edizione Star? This star right there, Edizione Star.
When did that book come out?
This one came out in 92.
You could not press it. It is not pressable.
You can't press it because of the cardstock.
What do you think a 9.8 would go for theoretically?
Whatever
someone was willing to pay. There's no. I know of what I think is a 9896 raw because my Italian contact helped a buddy of mine in the UK get it out, but he was a CGC guy, so I don't think he sent it in to CBCS. I think he would have sent it to CGC.
It's not there yet.
And it's not on it hasn't showed up on the census. But then again, he probably still has it raw. But I've only seen, even on these Italian copper books, especially this one, average would probably be in the 7.5, maybe 8.5, 9 range. Once you start getting into 9.2, 9.4, 9.6, they get more difficult because, like I said, there were collectors in Italy that had bags and boards in the 80s and the 90s, but it wasn't like all of them. It wasn't like here in the States. It was some of them.
Listen, Matt and I were talking the other day. Between 9.0 and above, me, my brother, him, and his friend own 80% of the market because there just aren't any. I own a 9.0, a 9.2. Mike owns a 9.0. There's 3 other 9.2s, and Emiliano has one of those. They just don't exist because that book is cardstock. If you get it shipped out of Italy, they don't use cardboard for shit. They send it in a manila envelope if you're lucky. If it has a bag on it, you're lucky. I got my one good copy out of Germany. It does not that book, if it started out beautiful, it does not get to you beautiful.
Yeah.
I love how in the chat Dennis Hayes made this comment. He said, he quoted, "My Italian contact helped me get it out," and how crazy that saying is. Like there's
not a piece of cardboard in Italy.
It's like you're putting these things in trunks and trying to go over the border. Like they're trying to get out from the communist Germany or something.
Well,
if you have not seen an Italian 5 or Italian 300, please look at it. It is the only one in my head that beats the American because it is just all black.
Because it represents what the symbiote does.
It is beautiful.
It is. It's way better than the American. I agree.
The 300, the traditional 300, remember had, the 300. It's kind of chaotic.
Yeah.
I understand the, the art. I understand the reasoning for it. There's a quick Mexican tag. I got so much shit, you guys. I could do this for hours. That's why we need to.
We're definitely gonna have you on. Come back on and pick up on this. I think this would be a cool regular topic every couple of months or so.
Yeah, because
it's beautiful. There's some shit that I like. I'm down the rabbit hole and digging into shit, and I don't even know the tip of it.
Mutant, Iron Man 1. Mexican, Iron Man 1, one of the toughest ones.
Yeah, it's just
it's crazy.
Gone, yeah.
So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been great.
Oh yeah, appreciate you coming on. This is awesome.
So I guess with that we can we'll end the podcast, and I'm sure a lot of people.
Anybody wants more info, go to foreigncommiccollector.com. Go to the Facebook page, foreigncollector.com, magazine official, and anybody that wants general speculation, comicbookinvest.com.
Yep.
Yep.
Are we good, boys? You think we're good?
Yeah, we're good.
I want to just real quick to end the show. I should have talked about it to begin with. This should be quick. A little update on the Gretzky rookie buy. I have finally started selling stuff on eBay over the last couple weeks. I've got $800 sold. I was lucky enough to sell 2 really nice high grade sets of Umbrella Academy for $250 each.
Nice.
I sold a Tom Brady rookie for $200 and a couple single books. So I'm finally getting that roller coaster going. And so we're $800 in, and I'll continue to update you guys. So the first sales have started. So
Sweet.
hopefully this the end game is near. So
cool. All right, boys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank
Yeah. We'll talk to everybody next week. So next Monday, comicbookinvest.com for your speculation needs. All right, boys. Good night.
Good night, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.